Hey everyone, how's it going? It's 1 p.m. We just got the closing bell for Thursday, July 25th, and it was one kind of crazy roller coaster of a day. It doesn't necessarily look that way on here, but uh, when you look at the intraday, it was quite a ride. You can see that we started out, went kind of flat, then we went down, and then we recovered. We went all the way up quite a bit before coming back down, and then in this last half hour or so, we just really came back down again. When we were sitting over here at the 542 before that last half hour, we were pretty close to where we closed yesterday. And just in that last half hour, we broke down and we kept on going. We passed below that 540 mark that we've been looking at since last Tuesday. So, what does that mean for us? Well, on a daily basis, you can see that we tried to recover. We went back up to the MA50 and we did not make it. We didn't make it. We paused over here at 547.5, which is actually pretty high. It was higher than I was expecting us to go. But you can see that this EMA8 came way down. It came way down, and we actually came pretty close to touching that EMA8 today, and it just sold off all the way down. Now that sell off late in the day does not give us a lot of confidence. We could say that, okay, well, we're down half a percentage point. It's not down that much. And it was probably a little bit more than what we would say if we were just chopping sideways. But, we can't really comfortably just call that a chop sideways. What it looks like is just a barely slight continuation to the downside. So sort of like this, where we went up and then the next day we continued a little bit. So does that mean we're going to keep on going down? Well, it definitely increases the chances of it, but I'm still looking for a movement like this. Big movement upwards, continuation, then the next day we get come back and we start pulling back. This is a little too much too fast. People got a little emotional. People got a little too fearful. And it's not warranted given that we have a large PCE report coming out tomorrow. Now, if that PCE report is terrible, then yes, we could definitely keep on going down. Our next area of support is right over here around the 535 or 533 level. So we're not talking about meltdown unless we just have a extremely terrible PCE report, but given the really strong GDP report and the PCE component of that GDP report that we got today, I'm not expecting anything wildly negative or wildly to the downside. So we'll just have to see when we get that report tomorrow. But for the most part, maybe we have the more likely movement right now is more movement downward, a little bit more movement downward, if any at all, and then we can bounce here. So actually, I got rid of the arrows too early, but that scenario, which I believe was the orange scenario originally, is now a little bit more likely. Go down until we hit some support over here around the 535 or maybe 533 level. It would just look something like this. Then if we bounce, then we have a chance of moving back in. Well, actually, we would have to get back to that EMA8 again first, and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay. If this is what happens, then we're a little bit more likely to the downside, and then we'll be starting to look at the possibility of that 10% correction. So we'll see. PCE report tomorrow is going to be pretty important, as are any earnings that are going to come out. So let's take a look at what we have coming out for the earnings today. Aftermarket, and nothing super huge, but there are some fairly followed names. Dexcom, I have a tail risk trade on in Dexcom. We'll take a moment and look at that pretty after this. We've got Decker's Outdoor. That'll be consumer discretionary. Or yeah, nothing huge though. Nothing huge. Baker Hughes. That's energy. Yeah, nothing huge coming out today after market. Then tomorrow we've got Bristol Myers Squibb. That's a nice consumer staple stock. We've got Colgate. That's another nice consumer staple stock. Triple M, very industrial blue chip stock. Charter Communications. So we got some pretty, I wouldn't say huge ones tomorrow morning, but we do have somewhat important ones coming out with earnings. And then, of course, we're going to be watching that PCE or component of the personal income and outlays tomorrow. So, versus this morning, we are a little bit more bearish. This morning, we're say bullish. Let's find out if we're going to move up or down, if we're going to chop sideways. Until this morning, everything, or actually until the last half hour, everything looked like it was going perfectly as we expected. It was really just that last half hour move to the downside that really kind of put that original estimate into doubt and say, oh, okay, there's quite a bit of bearish sentiment coming into this market towards the end of the day, and then we'll have to see. So everything's going to depend on that PCE report now. So we kind of wiped the slate clean, 50-50 chance, but we do have some good support right here. So we're not expecting it to just fall and crash downwards. If it does keep on moving down, it should be fairly orderly until we hit this area of support right here. And as we said this morning, this range right here, this 522, just call it 520 just to be safe, 520 to 535 area has a lot of support. Let's throw a volume profile on there right now. Okay, so here, that's a pretty big spike right here. And this is the last 200 sessions. So this is pretty big area right here. And if we came all the way down to here, then we would retrace all the way to the same place we bounced in the previous pullback. And by that time, we'd be calling it a correction, not a pullback anymore, the current one. So I don't think we'll get there. But again, tomorrow's PCE report will be very telling. Now, another thing that we want to keep in mind is the VIX. I haven't watched the VIX all day, so I just want to say how much did the VIX increase? Did it skyrocket, or did it kind of go the same, or just kind of go up a little bit on this move downwards? So let's take a quick look at our VIX, and it's just not that much. Not that much. It's just kind of baby movement upwards. So that's giving me more confidence in what we just said, which is that, okay, we could come down maybe a little bit more, but we're probably going to get caught in this area of support and not really move that much further below this area. At least not tomorrow. We'll see what happens. If we just steadily move downwards and then maybe consolidate for a few days, and then we could resume downward movement. But it's just unlikely that we're going to go all the way through all of this support in just a single session. It would take at least a few days to get through that. So just like this one, it took one, I guess, 2 sessions to get through this one, but this one was weaker than this one. Yeah. So let's take a look at QQQ. QQQ went all the way down to this green area that we drew. So nothing unexpected. So we could potentially bounce from here, but again, we've got that straddled in between these two is this big area of support right here as well. So if we do this, I think this green area will be pretty hard to traverse. But if we do, then we still have this area, then we have this area. But by then, again, we'll be at that MA200. So for now, we're just going to wait and see for that PCE report. This could be enough of a pullback that is the MA90, or some people might be looking at a EMA 100. It's very similar levels. And it looks like that's holding for now, but we'll see. So let's take a quick look at our momentum, see if that changed today because of this downward movement. I would be surprised if it had a lot, because most of this downward movement today happened late in the day. So If we look at QQQ, it was the same thing. It was mostly this last half hour where we really started to come crashing down. So let's take a quick look at our 90-day highs and lows. 444 90-day lows, and look at that. 164 90-day highs. It was 285. So that means in the last half hour, we lost over 100 of those. But you can see that we are skewed still to the upside. And at the very least, today, we're starting to see some momentum grow to the upside. So that is another data point that gives us confidence that perhaps we could be close to a bounce over here. Let's take a quick look at RSP. RSP looks like it's holding at that EMA 20. So it's looking better than the SPY. And if we look at the equal weighted SPY or QQQ, you can see that it came down a little bit. This is looking a little bit more like the SPY, but it is at this area of horizontal support already. So this could start to just move upwards, but again, the QQQ is getting caught inside that large green pocket that we drew. And so it looks like there's a reasonable chance that it'll just stick right here and perhaps bounce. I'm not going to invest based on that. I'm not going to put any capital based on that to work. I'm not going to trade based on that. But just as a kind of image in my head, as expectations of where things might go and preparation of how I might want to rebalance my portfolio, I'm just going to say, okay, well, looks like things are a little bit more bearish than we anticipated, but it's a good idea to maintain neutrality. So no real adjustments on that part. Let's take a look at our other ways of looking at momentum. It's still very high, 66% above 50-day moving average, 65% above the 200. And then let's look at our indices. 64.72, 60.74, 64.70, and I looked at the wrong one. 76, 70, 69, 60, 70, and then Nasdaq 100 41.60. So still same as this morning. No real change there. And so that makes me wonder where we lost ground, and it was really in that last half hour. So there's probably, this is just a guess, but there's probably a pretty sector heavy. It's not going to be across all sectors. That would be my most likely. You can see defense up 3%, biotech up 2.2%, home builders up 2.13%, energy up. All of these are up, and most of them are up significantly. Only consumer discretionary is kind of random, and same with the consumer staples. So many of these sectors are up. Which ones are down? Real estate, but that's kind of random. So we've got communications, we've got chips, and utilities. Those are the only ones that are down. These are gold and silver. So even tech is down only 0.18%. So you can see that actually almost every sector gained quite a bit. So it was really, so how does that happen? How can all these sectors gain? Some of these sectors gain so much, 2 to 3%, 1.5%, the majority of them. But in the end, we still ended down. That means that there's some really big weighted ones over in these sectors that really dragged us down. So we really would look into XLU, XLV, the two that did really well yesterday, kind of reverse today, and the healthcare. Well, I already said healthcare. So communications. So it's looking like XLC. Probably the big, something in XLC is probably the big offender here. Yeah, XLC broke down pretty hard. So let's just take a quick look at Google. Google is one of the reasons why. Meta. Yes, but not nearly as much as Google. Apple. Yeah, same thing, not nearly as much. Actually, this probably be easier on a heat map. Let's take a look at our heat map. And so you can see it's NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, AMD. So these are lighter red. This is a little bit darker red, or brighter red, I should say. AMD, Eli Lilly, which was in the XLV. So it's really these Eli Lilly down 4.5%, Google down 3%, AMD down 4.36%, Microsoft down 2.45%, Nvidia less, down at 1.72%. So these are the guys that really dragged us down in the last half hour. Otherwise, things were looking good. And let's take a look at Google on an intraday. Yeah. So here we go. So Google was doing well until right here. We got a huge volume spike right here. The largest volume spike of the entire day right here at 11 o'clock. For whatever reason, I don't know, may have been some news, and Google just started to sell off. And then in that last half hour, once again, selling off. So it looks like most likely Google is the biggest offender in bringing us down. So if it's just a single stock that brought everything down at the very end, I'm not going to be too concerned. The SPY will continue to move downwards. It's just one stock doesn't define the entire market. We've got some major reports coming out. And so the downside risk, there might be a lot of fear or emotion happening right now, but everything to me looks like we're kind of okay, unless that fear turns irrational and catches fire and everyone starts getting scared. But I don't really think that since it looks like it was mostly that one single stock. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Same thing, big spike right around 11 o'clock, but it was after Google's. Google's was at 11. This one's at 11:06. That started to sell off over here. And let's take a look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA never got that spike, so it just sold off in sympathy with everything else at 12:30. Meta, same thing. Eli Lilly did the opposite, traded up for the most part in the last half hour, did retrace a little bit. Amazon, same thing, no spike at 11. It's just the last half hour. And AMD. AMD, same thing. So it looks like it's all Google's fault. It's the one with the giant volume bar right here before everyone else is. So something happened with Google. Let's take a look. If I don't know if we'll be able to find out, but let's just see if Google announced Alphabet. Oh, okay. OpenAI plans Search GPT to compete with Google. So OpenAI, they're the people who created ChatGPT. They are challenging Google for search, which is Google's main business. So that's probably the news that took Google down. And with that, eventually it bled out into everything else in the last half hour. So I'm not concerned about that. Google single stock news, 1 to 3 day effect. So I'm not going to expect this downward motion to continue in the major indices. Before we leave, let's take a quick look at Dexcom, see if they reported, just out of curiosity. And wow, okay, look at that. Whoa, huge. Holy, I haven't seen a bar like this in quite some time. We're all the way down at 70. At 70. This stock just lost over 30%. That's amazing on earnings. Well, good thing we have a put. Our portfolio definitely chose the correct direction on that. We'll see how much of this recovers or if it continues into tomorrow morning, but this tail risk trade looks like it is going to pay off a really, really big. So that's going to be exciting for the people who have have this position in with me on those portfolios, this is going to be a pretty big payoff as long as we don't retrace all the way back. So we'll end it there on that nice bit of exciting news and down 33% post market. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow morning.